This will be the final, the third homework that you're going to do using analysis patterns. This is a real technical specification. Came out, I believe, 2007. I'm not so sure. This is real world example. Istanbul Bus Company, IETT, came up with this very good, interesting idea of, actually we are seeing it now, it is now 2013, so this came up, I'm not so sure, we can all actually understand it because it's talking about Pentium 3, Pentium 4, think about that time, you know, when was Pentium 4 really?
2019, 99 something.
Okay, right then, beginning of 2000 then. It's very old, but you will see. You know that at the moment they begin to put displays on buses, and there are some displays on the bus stops. Did you see them?
Yes.
It says, you know, this bus is coming, stuff like that, or you're in the bus and it says, you know, this is the next stop, you will be arriving. Yeah? So that's it. So, but it was 2000. And at that time, nobody was able to do this. They came up with this requirement, but nobody did. It was very difficult, and actually, more importantly, you will see this always happen. You envision you as you're the party that you're going to buy, like the bus company. You envision something that this can happen, but if you're going out to tender, you really have to define it. This is a tender and you're writing a requirements specification. You really need to specify it, what exactly you are looking for. Otherwise, it is too risky for all the bidders to go in. You're not defining, this is just a dream. But unless you define it, it's a big risk for them. Either they come up with a very high price, or you know, they look at the price and they say, nah, they're not going to be able to pay for it, so they don't bid. So it happened like that at that time, and you would understand why it was the case. But there are some things that we can use as an example, and we can try to apply the things that we learn in analysis patterns and apply them in here. So that's why I'm bringing up this as an example for, or you know, this is the final homework that you're going to have. I don't know, I will somehow send it to you, maybe put it on the website. Let me see. Okay, great. Wow. I don't know, I'm sorry, but this preview really works fine. Mac preview, it's great. You see, perfect. I like it. I really don't like Acrobat PDF viewer or something. Anyway. Yeah, you can do this. I mean, like pinching, you make it bigger.
With Windows 8, it's the same.
No.
And
No.
there's a special mouse for that. You can zoom in and zoom out.
Really?
No, the Magic Trackpad was out by 2010 in the Mac store.
I don't know. Anyway, let's go back. Well, it talks about several things. You can read it cover by cover. It's interesting to read. Well, all of you know that writing the requirement specification is not an easy task. Reading it is also not easy. And this is a one, not really easy. It talks about that every car, every bus actually, well actually every car, that includes the buses as well, because bus company has some support cars, or any car that they have. There are some trucks or maybe anything, any vehicle that they own, they want to apply this, but buses will have some extra features. So they want to have a GPS. There will be an interaction system between the bus driver or the driver and the bus. It talks about that there should be some special buttons to that the driver will press, for example, will inform that there's a need for repair or emergency. It's a flat tire, somebody will come. So there is even a special button for a flat tire that when it presses that tire button, will sending back a message to say there's a flat tire. So, and it has a communication system. It's using a cellular network, but at the same time, every bus stop has a DSL, a wireless. So when the bus arrives at a bus stop, it uploads all the big chunk of data that it has to upload to the central mainframe or something, whatever it is. And there is some displays. There are some displays like the ones that you see. They are running commercials at the same time, but also if what is the next stop, when we will be there, depending on the congestion of the week, of the day of the week, because there are some statistical figures that this system has to be generating. You have to be calculating everything, and when you are traveling on that route, if it is Monday and if it is 2 o'clock, so the bus, the computer in the bus, knows probably when you will be in the next stop, due to congestion statistics. So it has to be able to do that as well. It is somehow interaction. It has some kind of an interaction between the smart tickets, ACMI. It should also, when it stops in the bus stop, it uploads the information about the number of passengers inside. It even talks about, I don't know how it is, but it even talks about, you have to be able to say how many people get in to the bus, how many people getting out of the bus. Getting out of the bus is difficult. I don't know how to do this. But getting into the bus, yes, okay, you are just, you're using this smart ticket, you can count it, but I don't know, the other one. There are some techniques like image processing. You can look inside the bus and count the number of people. That's possible. Because why this is important? It says up here, down there, it talks about that we need the system should be able to by itself give you suggestions for number of buses in a route, and if you need some extra buses on that route. There's a route, for example, this 559C from here to Taksim. Maybe there is when the computer detects that it is always crowded, it suggests that you put extra buses on that route. And depending on this, maybe it's even suggesting that there has to be an extra route connecting here to somewhere else. So actually, this is the part that was probably, if I were to be bidder, that would be one of the points that I would really be afraid of when going into this standard. Because you don't know exactly if you are matching or not matching this requirement. because it is saying that it has to give me a suggestion, okay, build this, build, and it is also kind of a very advanced traveling salesman problem, right? And it is, when you look at it, it is not really solvable very easily. So this is the scary part. At the end, when you finish, when you deliver, the customer might say, we didn't like it. They can easily say, we didn't like it because it is not really clearly written. You cannot say, yeah, but it is doing what you defined that it is doing. So that was the part that was, really scary for all of them. So this system, at the same time, let me see. Well, the system also should be keeping track of the personnel, drivers. Of course, when you think about it, I have buses, so we will be designing this. Okay, I want you for the final part of this, the last homework. I want you to come up with I will tell you what exactly I'm looking for. I'm not going to do it maybe today, but next week probably I will do it. There are some parts of it. It's interesting that we can use some of the topics that we discuss or will be discussing in analysis patterns into this. That is, and one of them is like, of course, we will be keeping track of buses. We will be keeping, we have to keep track of bus stops. We're talking about routes. We're talking about services, and I will tell you what they mean. And also we have drivers, because you are assigning drivers to what? Something, you're assigning drivers in the morning or weekly. Well, in here it says weekly. There are weekly plans. The driver, for example, Monday morning comes, well, not exactly like that. It says that the driver from his house, wherever, or from his phone, should, well, at that time there was a, smartphones at that time, but it was talking about, we'll go into internet in his home and we'll look at his schedule, where he will be going to for the week, which bus he will take over and which route and which services he will be running. Okay, so we are now thinking of what should be the structure, like the one that I showed you before, accountability types, that kind of rough squares and rectangles connecting to each other. So drivers are important because they have a certain number of hours that they have to fill, and it is possible that they are not fulfilling them because maybe a service is not able to be completed. Maybe the driver doesn't show up that morning, he's sick. So we have to also cover those things because every driver has a point. Every driver has a performance point. If it is performing well or not, because you are going to be paying that person if it is doing his job, and you have to determine that if it is you're assigning something to him, and you have to find if he's doing the job or not doing the job. And then you go back and look at the track record. I gave this guy these services, these assignments, and he completed this and that, didn't complete this. But of course, when that person doesn't fulfill or doesn't show up in the morning, you have to assign somebody else immediately to that job. Or it can be that there is a bus, it failed to run in the morning, you have to assign another bus. It talks about that every bus, of course, has a unique, identifier in our database. And I also want to know every part on it. For example, just an example, tires. Tires, like, runs about 50,000 kilometers, I don't know whatever number. So you tell the system, okay, I'm putting this tire on this bus at this number of kilometers. So I have to know, the system should alert me all right, you should be changing the tires of these buses next month, a list. So I know how many tires that I should buy. And also talks about that, I come back to the drivers. I should also be keeping track of the drivers, their social security payments, how many kids they have. All these details has to be there as well. How many hours that they have been working, their holiday schedules, so that you have to. So it should also calculate. It says amazing software, that it should also calculate by itself how many drivers you should have.
Well, I think this is nonsense because it's all another topic of projects. So we cannot define a great software by combining a lot of software together. That's the project, I think. So you might say that, for example, if the driver is and send him a card or visit him at the hospital, an alarm should warn the manager. Yeah, I think that's nonsense. Out of the topic, I think.
Okay, but
I agree.
there are a lot of things like that. Anyway, so all right. What is important to us? There are lots of other things like maintenance. An assignment could be, there are assignments. For example, assignment could be running a route or a number of services in a given time. For a driver, you're assigning something to that driver. It could also be assignment for because there are repair buses. You've seen them on the street. There are assignments for repair buses. There should be a section for maintenance centers for their job as well. So because maintenance center also has employees and you're assigning things, go repair that bus. You're giving that to one person, and that one goes and repairs that bus and comes back. I repaired it. Okay, you take a record. This guy claims that he repaired it. Maybe there's a check that somebody else goes and checks that that bus was repaired or not. So all of them should be in here. It says this one should calculate the social security payments of the drivers as well. That's the reason that it is, number of children, what their ages are, because these things are affecting the social security payments. So it's that complicated. So it's one of the things that you learn when you're working with government. When they go out for a tender, tenders are very difficult. It takes time and stuff like that. So they try to put in everything in one tender. Okay. Since we're doing a tender, let's let them paint the walls as well, something like that. And another important thing for us is really that we have. All right, I don't want to go on. There are so many of them in here, and we will see. It's given in this form. It is not too bad. All of them has a number, so you can keep track. But what is important for our purposes is that you should know. Do you know what's the difference between a route and a service? That's one thing important for us. Route is 559, for example. 559C is a route, okay, between Taksim and Hisarüstü. What is a service? Service is the individual service, for example, of 559C from Taksim to Rumeli Hisarüstü at 6 a.m. in the morning. So there is another service at maybe 6:20. So these are called services. And there is a route. So there is a route to go, the route to come back. it talks about that we want to also keep track of bus stops, because we are keeping commercials on these bus stops. There are some big advertisements. And there are types of bus stops, as you know. Some of them are big, some of them are small. Some of them has a cover on top, some doesn't. And you should also know to which company those advertisements are assigned to, if they are cleaned or not. So in order to do that, we also have types of bus stops. We also should know that. What else? There is something also interesting. As you know, imagine a road. There are two bus stops, of course, on that road, just across each other. One in this direction, the other one is the other direction. So, well, you can imagine that routes has a direction. Routes do have a direction because it is 559C. We call it that way, but actually in reality it is not. There are two 559Cs. One is in the direction of Taksim, the other one is in the direction of Rumeli Sarısu. So these are two different things, but we call them with the same name. And it may happen with the bus stops as well. It is the same name, but two different bus stops across the street. Yes? And it can even be many bus stops, and all of them are in the vicinity of Mecidiyeköy. You think about Mecidiyeköy, there are how many bus stops over there? You know, think about it. There are also beginning and ending bus stops. You know, the main bus stops. So we should be accounting all of these things. We also should be thinking about assignments. Assignment of a driver to what? We have to think about this. We should be giving assignments to the drivers, and those drivers will have schedules, weekly schedules and monthly schedules. Those schedules may change. And it talks about that something similar to Akbil. I don't know if you ever saw it, this is real. Drivers have those kinds of Akbils, special kinds of Akbils as well. When they go into the bus, they you know, in the morning, the first time when they do it, they will press it. This is how it describes. They will press it. They will tell the bus, "Oh, I'm your driver." And if he's not the driver, he will say, "No, you cannot drive me." Then, if this is the case, the supervisor comes in and will tell, "No, this one will drive you from now on." Then the boss will accept.
Is it working right now?
No, I don't know if it is working, but this is how it's written in here. I don't know, really.
So much restriction.
This is, I'm curious, maybe. But
It
some
doesn't
of this, so finally they didn't finalize, they weren't able to finalize this tender. So what happened is, they had their municipality has its own software company. You know that? Beldim.
Yeah.
Beldim got the job because it's their own company. That was the right thing to do, in my opinion, because this is kind of research and development at the same time. And another company wouldn't be able to do this. So they are gradually, because I'm seeing it, I started to see the video displays at the bus stops. You know, before that there was displays in the buses. So I started to see, oh wow, this is happening. So, you know, these things, first one, that connection rules, for example, accountability with knowledge levels we talked about today, can be used for these purposes. And it's flexible enough for their purposes because they can come up with any type of relationship, connections, maintenance center, or is it, you know, who can do what? It's very flexible. Do they need in real life that flexibility? I don't know. Maybe it's too much flexibility, because flexibility means a lot of work for the user as well. And we will also see things like planning schedules as well. That with Martin Fowler, he has some ideas about plans, schedules, type of thing. We will also see shortly some things about, well, that properties, identifiers. I think these are very obvious, but I will show it to you anyway. And I believe that you will be able to do and model what I'm describing to you. Again, I will write it to you on our website. The assignment isn't complete, you know. I will write it, the things that I'm saying. Luckily, this is not being recorded. I hope it is. Not sure. Does it?
Yes.
Okay, so you will also be able to watch it later. What else? I think this is all. Yeah, well, our homework is that. I mean, that's all for our homework. But there are many other things in here. All of them are not really easy things. For example, these commercials running on in the buses or bus stops. You might think about, well, commercials are easy. Okay, well, it's not conflate, but it's not that easy, because those commercials will be given to companies, and companies will be allocating those slots, and you have to keep track how many times those commercials have been shown, in which routes, because they may specify, I want my commercial to be run in these routes, not on those other routes. So that's an interesting, you know, I like these kind of difficulties. I don't know why, but you also have to look at the people, because you need to report back to the agency, the advertisement agency. This many people view your commercial, because you know you keep track of the people who get into the bus, right? So you can do this. But you need to have a pipeline of commercials coming in. You have to fill them into the pipeline. You know, you have some MP4s, files, waiting to be displayed in your buses. And think about it. All of them attached with a number of views, for example. Number of minutes or seconds, number of times that they are going to be displayed. So there's an air time, so it's this many seconds to be viewed, this many times on a certain route, on certain services, and once it is finished, the next one from the pipeline will come in, right? But what happens, for example, if, and all of them has some prices, you can price everything differently. This route maybe is very popular, so it is pricey. It's more expensive. And this route is not really popular, so it is, you don't have to pay that much per second. Maybe the hours, you can go down to the hours. And more interestingly, I have a pipeline, as I said. When I'm coming to the bus company and I'm saying, look, I want my commercial to be run immediately. What is the extra that you should be paying? And you know, you should be able to put it before some of the others. So all these things are very nice. If you build that software,